It takes 5 sheets of 8x10 film So I'm here in Calgary, home of the Calgary Stampede. Each year, Calgary hosts the Calgary Stampede that is a gigantic rodeo, gigantic fair, where over 1 million people come to it over the 10 days each year. Of course, with what's happening in the world this year, like so many other things, the Calgary Stampede was canceled. But I'm going to take you to a project that I did 5 years ago and that I shot all on 8x10. And it wasn't with this even light Canon camera, it was with a heavy Deerdorf camera. And I basically walked around the Stampede with the camera on my shoulder on a tripod, and I stopped and I did portraits of a lot of the characters at the Calgary Stampede. I did it for the Globe and Mail newspaper, Canada's national newspaper, and they give it a great ride on the front page in a big double spread. During that whole time, I would set up my camera and people would actually come to me and stop and, take a look at the camera, and it'd be super easy to take portraits. Or else I'd walk around and I'd find people. And walking around with an 8x10 camera with 100,000 people surrounding you was quite a feat. It was really tough. It was long days, it was hot. I was pretty worn out after I did it. But the resulting portfolio of photographs was really worth it. The quality of the images, it was a really different take for me shooting the Stampede that way. Oftentimes, I'll do it on digital cameras. I'll shoot the rodeo and I'll shoot people. Shooting it in black and white with a big 8x10 camera was a big departure, and it was a lot of fun. Instead of shooting this week, we're going to take a look at that portfolio, and I hope you enjoy it. So after roaming around the Calgary Stampede from anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day, I would come back and I would develop my film. I would shoot no more than 10 sheets of film. My Jobo Expert 3005 tank does 5 sheets at a time. That would end up taking me about an hour and a half to do 2 batches of film. I develop my film in D76. I do it at 1:1, and a pretty straightforward process. Developer, stop, bath, fix, wash the film. To wash my film, I use this cross-jet system where the negative goes in here, the water sprays on both sides, and it's a great, super efficient way of washing your 8x10 film. It stands up, nothing touches, and I really like this system of washing my film. And then I would do quick scans just with a digital camera on a light table, just so that I could see what the image looked like and see if I was going to go further with it and do a proper scan for publication. Well, I wanted to show you some photos now that I shot during the 10 days of the Calgary Stampede. It was a long haul, but it was super satisfying to get a lot of the photographs that I did. And I'm going to take you through some of them right now here, and you can have a look at some of these photographs. These are all full frame 8x10 scans. These are good scans. All these scans are done on my Epson B700 flatbed scanner. And you can see here the 3 Calgary Stampede princesses. Oftentimes when I was taking these pictures, it was quite a production to set the camera up and get them to pose, and then people would be looking in the background. So I kind of had to work quick, but the great thing with working with an 8x10 is everybody gave me a lot of time. This was Dakota Lewis. He's a great bull rider from Montana. He came up, and here after his ride, he was wet and covered in mud, and I photographed him in the back paddock there where the bull riders change and get ready. This is world-renowned National Geographic photographer William Albert Allert. He continues to work on his cowboy culture. He is over 80 years old now. He has worked for National Geographic for over 50 years. He still shoots amazing photographs, works with rangefinder Leica cameras, and at this time he had a little Luminux. He switched to a Leica Q now, but he's been capturing poetic images of American culture and the American cowboy. He is one of the most influential photographers of the 20th century. We were sitting at a bar inside at one of the tents at the Calgary Stampede, and he said, yeah, but the problem with the 8x10 is you can't take a picture in a bar here like this. And I said, oh, really? So I pulled out the camera and I started setting it up, and everyone was staring at us, and he posed for a photograph of me, and I had a bit of light coming in from behind. and it just worked out to be one of those really lovely images. This is TV icon John Scott. He's worked on a bunch of Hollywood movies, and this is a bunch of friends he has. Here's him hanging out at the Calgary Stampede in the back, and oftentimes at the Stampede here, it is a big party, and it is a lot of friends getting together who haven't seen each other for a long time. This is a friend of mine, Megan Adamski, and this was actually the very last photograph I took in this series. I was walking home on the last day that I was shooting, that I had time to shoot, and I ran into her, and I took this photograph in the back parking lot, and it was wonderful light, and you can see her freckles so well on this, and I just really love this portrait of her. That's Miss Rodeo Canada in the middle. And there's a lot of rodeo queens from all over, from Australia, from the States, from all over Canada. They were kind of looking at my camera as I had it on my shoulder, and I said, all these gals together, and they had their sashes on and their crowns. So I stopped and I try to photograph these tableaus. I arrange people or photograph people how I see them and in natural life. So they were all kind of in that position. I just got them to hold their position, and some were looking away from me and some at me, and I took a couple different photographs of them. So I really like to try to photograph tableaus as I discover them with the 8x10 camera, not setting them up, but seeing an image and then getting them to hold that pose and then taking a picture of it. This is Preacher Phil Doan, and he's a cowboy preacher, and I took this portrait of him right before he did his Sunday cowboy prayer services that actually happened at Ranchman's Bar on a Sunday morning. This was a young gal that I found walking on the Stampede, and I loved her eating the ice cream. The Calgary Stampede often is about a lot of the different foods that you find there, so I stopped and asked her if I could take a photograph of her. These are guys at the Calgary Stampede Marching Band, and they were in the back rehearsing before they went on stage. And again, I see scenes and I just stop people and ask them just to hold where they are for a moment, and I set up my camera and I take a photograph. Almost all of these photographs were taken with a 300mm Fuji f.56 lens. I was walking with my camera and this young girl comes up to me and says, "Oh, that's a great old camera. Can you take my photograph?" And I said, "Sure." And it was just at the edge of light. And there's a little bit of motion. She was moving around a little bit. She wasn't still. But I just love her pose, and I love the look on her face, and the little bit of motion even adds to the photograph. This is AJ Stahl. He came in from a town outside of Calgary, and he made 18 baskets in a row to win this big bear. And he was walking around the fairgrounds with this big bear, which I thought was great. It was half the size of him, so I stopped and asked him if I could take a photograph of him. Here again, I came across this scene. Cowboys chatting it up with the young gal on the midway. I love the tree in the middle. It kind of breaks up the image a little bit, and I love the light, the soft light coming in. Again, almost everybody throughout the Stampede, when I asked if I could take their photograph, they were right into it. They had no problems with me taking the image. This is Indigenous elder Leo Pretty Young Man Jr. of the Siksika Nation. And he was representing his people at the start of the chuck wagon races. And as I was walking by, I had the camera set up. He came over to take a look at it. He was like just enthralled with the camera. He loved that camera. He looked at it in every direction. And he asked if I wouldn't mind taking a picture of him. I said, "Oh, absolutely, it'd be my pleasure." He just stood there with, you know, all of his dignity, and I snapped a couple photographs of him. These are the Rumple Brothers. Wade is on the left and Gary. They have been a standard pair of icons at the Calgary Stampede for 25 years. And they're in the rodeo. As pickup men, what they do is they help cowboys out when they dismount from their horses, and they help steer the horses back in through the chutes. That was 6-year-old Kennedy McMillan, and she was helping round up some of the smaller horses at the Calgary Stampede. This is Western singer-songwriter Tim Huss. Tim is a local musician, and he writes about Canadiana like nobody else. And I took this photograph in between his trailer with the sun right behind him, right before he went on stage to play. That's food worker Tara Jesperson. and she's selling French fries on the Midway. Ms. Jesperson has been traveling with fairs and rodeos for the past 20 years. She loves being on the rodeo. I love the detail on this, and of course, shooting this on 8x10, you just catch and capture all of the detail. As big prints, these would be amazing, but there's so much detail to look at and get lost in these photographs. 4 times a day during the Calgary Stampede, the Cannon Lady, aka Jennifer Schneider, is shot out of a cannon and flies through the air to the amazement and amusement of spectators. Her father and sister also get shot out of a cannon. Who wouldn't like to get shot out of a cannon? This is a 26-year-old Stetson Lawrence. After a day that he won the bull riding competition, riding 7 dust for a score of 89.5. He's from Wilson, North Dakota. During that day, for riding the bull, he won $5,500 too. So after being photographed by a new digital camera in an old-time costume, this is Calgarian Mandy Leslie. And she was photographed by a real old-time 8x10 camera, my camera. Ms. Leslie visited the Stampede with her husband and son, and they decided to have their family photo taken in period costumes. And I love this. She came out on the Midway for me, and I love the fact that she's got no shoes on, that she's barefoot there, and she's got this old-timey costume and the feather in her hair. And I love how the people are kind of a little bit blurred in the background in that cotton candy sign, and just her honest, natural look. This was one of my favorite portraits of the whole time. This guy was from the Glass family, I think, but he was an outrider at the Calgary Stampede chuck wagon races, and he was going to start riding. I just love this portrait, and I love that tattoo of the gun going down into his pants and him holding his boots like that and his crop, and just a wonderful portrait of some of these cowboys here. And I even experimented with some portraits. The Calgary Stampede princesses again. I did 3 separate exposures a lot closer, and then I kind of stitched them together in a crude way in Photoshop just to have a little bit of a different look. I kind of really like it. It's a little different, it's a little edgy, and I don't know if I do everything like that, but there's definitely something there. It's great to experiment, to try different things, so that when it comes time to doing an assignment, you might have something in your back pocket where you could say, hey, I'm gonna try this because I tried it. It didn't work last time, but maybe it's gonna work this time. You never know what's gonna work, what's not gonna work. So I always like to try to experiment no matter what I'm doing or no matter what format I'm working in. So this was some of my favorite photographs from this, basically about 10 days of shooting pictures. And then the Globe and Mail ran this story, and I'm going to show you how they ran it and how it looks. So this was the front page of the Globe and Mail that they ran, and it's great to see them running an old 8x10 photograph in black and white on the front page of a national newspaper. And this was the double page spread that they ran. When I originally went to the photo editor then, Mo Doran, about this crazy idea I had about taking an old 8x10 camera and shooting 8x10 film, and that 8x10 film is going to be expensive, he really jumped at the idea. He thought that was a great idea. I think he was wondering if I could actually pull it off, and he helped me out a lot. I sure owe a huge debt of gratitude for him for having the faith in me and the trust in me to do this assignment and to pull it off. They give it a great ride in the newspaper and online as well. So I hope you enjoyed this little bit of a different episode that I brought you. I know this work was from 5 years ago, but I still really like it. It's still one of the highlights of me shooting large format photography. If you like this, please subscribe. Leave me a comment, leave me a like, let me know what you think. If you like this, there'll be more things like this. I hope that everyone is safe, having a good summer, and I will see you soon. Cheers.